Hey, everybody, my name is Bill Fisher. I'm here with Jonathan Curry, the brain.
The brain.
And Jonathan is a software developer, engineer, professional. How would you say it?
I would be a software engineer.
Software engineer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the tech people, basically it'd be a 24 years grunt, senior grunt, indie hacker.
Okay. The reason why we're having this conversation is because AI is here. It's been here. It's just becoming more on the forefront and seen a lot more than we've ever seen it before. You've probably been messing with it for years, I'm sure. But for most of us, it's just like this new thing, right? ChatGPT's been here for a few years that we know of for most of us. And the majority of people don't know how to use simple AIs like ChatGPT and Grok and, those. And we really are just playing around with, the cusp of it. And the tip of the iceberg is what's sticking out. And that's like, hey, chat, rewrite my essay for me. Hey, chat, go do this for me. Make me an SOP for this. And that's like the iceberg, the little tip that's out of the water. But there's so much more underneath. And what we're talking about is how do we take AI and implement it into our businesses, the sub level? We don't want the surface level. I mean, we do, because everyone needs to understand the surface level to even reach down in the sub level. But the sub level is really what we're going to be talking about. And that's how does your business make money or save money or become more efficient with AI?
Right. So to your point, a lot of businesses are using AI in their business, but they aren't seeing any positive effect on their bottom line. So their P&Ls are staying the same. And ultimately, you came and you said, hey, we want to help people in these companies utilize AI in a more effective way, in a smart way, help teach them what tools do they use, how do they use them. So of course, my brain goes and searches for the root cause. What is the reason that people aren't doing that right now? What is the reason that these businesses don't seem to be seeing the effect? And is there actually any information to substantiate that?
Hold on. This is work. I apologize. Hey, Allison. What is it you're trying to do? So remember, the only one that is connected is the left side. So you're going to go through the exact same process that you would if you were going to run them on the screens that we had. Input one. Yeah. As long as I have the parts for it. So I just have to make sure that I have the parts. But yeah, so are you good? Because I'm in a meeting. Okay, cool. All right, bye. Sorry about that.
This is an excellent case in point. I wish that was like planned in, but that right there is exactly what we're trying to address. Because, so for example, that entire interaction could have been avoided. Now, for a lot of companies, they go, oh, we'll just write an SOP. But that could have been, Allison, anytime you have an issue, type it into this custom chat GPT or this custom AI that has already internalized all of our lesson learned of our company. And so when she goes, I can't get the sound system to work. And she can interact with that AI to solve her problem as if it was you. You would never have to receive that phone call.
The build GPT.
Exactly.
Or main event GPT.
Great.
Okay.
And so when we look at, okay, well, she didn't have that, or maybe she does and doesn't know how to use it. And so when we backtrack and go, what are the root causes of not actually receiving a benefit? Because you're using AI, right? Yourself. You're a business owner of multiple businesses. But one of your key employees is still calling you for things that could be solved in other ways.
Yeah.
So we reverse out of this. We go, okay, you're one of the 95% of the companies that is implementing AI in their business, in their flows. but not receiving the benefits that the 5% are.
Wish I would have had that on speakerphone.
So when that happens, we go, what's the reason? You didn't build the tool. You didn't build the guardrails. You didn't roll it out, implement it, train it. You didn't change your processes to include AI. And even if you had done those things, if you did them wrong, and even if she was using AI, she might go into some AI that you have no idea about to solve her problem and maybe solve it incorrectly. And so you go and you're like, how did my sound system get shorted out?
And spend money getting there.
Oh, well, we should just caveat that.
Yeah.
All of this is money.
Yeah.
This is business.
Yeah.
You know, if you spend more time doing something, that's money, resources. So this kind of leads us to, we were talking about type 1 errors. So false positives. I think it's true, but it's not true. I think I've trained my key employee. I didn't. What's that cost me? Time, money, resources, reputation, all of the things that follow, because you thought something was true and it wasn't. Type 2 errors, just for completion, false negative. We think it's bad, so we're not going to go there. But it was really, really good. Depending on your business, you might optimize for one or the other. In small business, private real estate investing, these types of areas, these are all type 1 optimized, which means it's way more expensive to believe something is true and be wrong than it is to think something is bad and avoid it. VCs, like investing in startups, for example, they're type 2 optimized because the loss is exponential. You could suffer a lot of, we blew $1 million on these companies, but we participated in an Uber or a Google or an OpenAI. If they had optimized for type 1, then they miss out on those opportunities because they would be like, I don't know about this AI thing. It's machine learning. It's been around for a long time. Nobody's really seen, any success with it. Mm-hmm. But then they're completely out of the loop when the next technological evolution happens. So understanding what risk mitigations that we have in place, why we do that, we start backing into these areas of like, how do we get the boardroom level decision makers to take responsibility for what is theirs? So avoid over delegation. What does over delegation look like in this case? This would be, I have delegated something to a general manager that general manager does not have overall oversight of the entire company. So they're going to make a decision that impacts everybody without the information. And so boardroom level decisions have complete view of everything. And so when you make a decision on implementing AI in your business, you understand how that's going to impact not just this one line of business, but all lines of business, because you're at that boardroom level. We see a lot of over delegation in the terms of AI. We go, IT guy, go find a project and implement AI into my business. Make it cool. Sell it to the board. And IT guy has no idea what the future plans of the company are. They don't know what investment opportunities are coming down. They're not a part of any of those conversations. They are IT guy. They know, what the current systems are. And so IT guy goes and, does some research, or maybe they're already, doing it in their personal life and they pull something off the shelf. But they're all doing it in this little teeny vacuum of information. And so we need to educate at the boardroom level how to make decisions about AI and encourage them to take responsibility for those decisions. And what does that look like? You need an actual owner of that initiative, like a name. Who in the organization is going to be responsible for signing off on these decisions? And so these all filter in the space of when you implement an AI change in your business, it is a reworking of your current workflows.
Okay.
And so
and most of the time people don't have a current workflow. They don't have SOPs.
Everybody has a workflow, whether it's documented, whether it's documented well,
right,
whether it's
That's
optimized.
What I meant is I meant an actual SOP documented workflow. Yeah.
Right. And well, the reason why, and I know that's what you meant, but I want to make the distinction because a lot of times people say, well, I don't have a way of doing things. Like, well, if you have a business
That's made any money.
and you have customers,
Yeah.
like even if you're losing money, you have customers. There's a lot of massive companies that everyone knows about that have not made a dime for 15 years. And so, some initiatives take longer to pay off. These are those exponential payoffs though, right? But at a smaller level, if you're doing a thing to achieve an outcome, you have some kind of process. But what ultimately happens is that process is never captured by the company. So your general managers are not reinforcing the decisions that your board level, decision makers have laid out. What does that look like in AI? Board decides to start an AI initiative. General manager never says anything about AI ever. What just happened? We said we're implementing AI. Well, the board level decision makers didn't roll out that decision in a tone and communicating that this is an AI assistant. This is not replacing you. Because if I just said, hey, we're going AI, we're going to be more efficient, what an employee hears is, you're going to need less of me.
Yeah.
They don't hear, I want to take all of the tasks off of your plate that are slowing you down, that you don't like at all. And I want you to be able to focus your time and energy on things that you're really good at, which are excellent.
Let's stop there for a second, because I want to talk about that. Because I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people have is a fear that we are going to be replaced. I mean, think about this like at home, right? What if there was a more efficient husband, that the wife could use on a regular basis to do things and fix things, and whatever she needed done in the house, it was there. And then, at home, like, for example, when my wife says, well, I think I'll just call a handyman because I know you're probably really busy. I'm like, bull crap. I'm going to get my tools on. No way. We're not calling it. No, I'm here for a reason, and I have a purpose here, and I'm going to do my job. And I think I have a friend that I play racquetball with, and he works for an airline industry, and he's a trainer. And I asked him the other day, I said, so what are you doing with AI in your business? And he goes, really? Nothing. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'm just apprehensive because I'm not completely sold on it yet. And I'm like, bro, this bus is here. It's en route. It's about to run you over. You better get on or get out of the way because it's coming. And I think a lot of companies feel that way. Like you said, the employees or the key employees or the people who hold the keys right now to the kingdom. And it's like, hey, Joe, I know you're in charge of all these things and we rely on you, and you're the glue behind our structure. And then if a system took that person's responsibilities, then he's out of a job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that's not uncommon for our own mindset. Like, we as people, as men, definitely associate our identity with what we do. As you point out, like, well, I'm still useful. I'm going to go put on the tools. Yeah. But as a business owner, you also understand that your most valuable time is probably not spent doing the handyman task.
Right.
Even though you could. It's, proper delegation. And, what triggered you is improper communication of the end goal by your wife.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what business owners do. We have a really awesome end goal. We want to make our people live the best lives that they can live. And we also want to serve our customers in the best way that we can. And so we're constantly looking for these refinements. And when we look at something that's new, like AI, we have many models in the past that emulate this space. This would be like your friend coming and say, are you using the internet in your business? Internet, that's a fad. It's going away. Computers, that's a fad. They're going away.
Yeah.
Right? Because we lack the foresight in areas that we have no understanding or information in. This is exactly the same thing with overdelegation, right? You can see how these patterns trickle down. Like, we're not immune to them. We have to learn how to observe them so that we can recognize when they're occurring. Part of this course that I'm writing deals with that. Like, how do I teach somebody to look at using AI different? So, like, a warning sign. Picking a tool first. Are you using ChatGPT in your business? Well, yes, no, I don't know, maybe, right? That is not the correct approach. How do I know that? Because it's not associated with an actual problem. And we learn things like, set SMART goals, right? Why? Because they're specific, right? It's narrow. We know exactly what it is that we're looking to achieve. We articulate a metric. What is that? I need to know if I'm making progress towards my goal, right? It has to be something that is actually going to move our bottom line. And one of those 4 pillars that we talked about is, do you actually have a business problem to solve? And somebody like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I have a business problem to solve. And so when we, again, roll this back, like then people just start implementing AI at the employee level by over-delegating, not taking responsibility, not articulating the clear business objectives associated with it. And when they go, well, whose fault is it? Well, I don't know, because there were no owners on that project. And so when we start removing these things and checking them off, we go, okay, we need a clear business goal to solve. What does that look like? Sally spends 4 hours a week responding to emails. I would like to reduce that to 1 hour a week of responding to emails. Okay. What does that get us back? Sally is our general manager. She has other tasks that would be more applicable to serving our customers than responding to emails. It's just not the best use of her time. And we can say, okay, we pay Sally a salary of X. That means 4 hours of her time is worth Y. We have now quantified the bottom line impact.
Let's put a number behind that. Okay. So let's say your average GM is making 200 grand, right?
Holy shit, I'm going to work for you.
Okay. Let's say they're making 100 grand. They make 75,000.
The number that came to my head was 65, but maybe I'm outdated. Haven't hired a GM in a while.
150,000. Okay. So you have 40 hours, which no one works 40 hours anymore, but let's just say 40 hours times 52.
So we
that's
do is
2,080.
we take, easy math. We always divide everything at 2,000 hours.
Okay.
So
let's say
2,000 hours a year is like what it is. So you take your salary, divide by 2,000. That's how much I'm going to pay you per hour.
Okay. All right. So that's $75 an hour. So your average GM who's making $150,000 a year is making $75 per hour plus benefits, plus all the stuff, plus everything.
Right.
The cost to you is probably times 1.6. So it's probably going to be like $130 an hour or $120 an hour, somewhere in that range. So, but let's say that we're spending $120 an hour on your GM.
Yeah.
And
let's call it $500 a week.
Well, I just wanted to go through the basic.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you said 4 hours a week of answering basic email things that they probably don't need to be handling.
Right.
So 4 times 120 is $480 a week times 4, the average month of 4. So it's basically around $2,000 a month for your GM to answer their emails.
Right.
Okay. So tell me, Jonathan, how could I save somebody time and money?
Right. So we articulate the problem, which is I need to reallocate the time of my GM to a higher return on investment task. Okay.
Right.
So I now have a metric. I know exactly this is going to, save me $2,000 a month to if I do this.
Because a GM is somebody who should be handling non-menial tasks.
Correct.
Right. And they should be they're up here, they're getting paid up here because they solve big problems. The people at the lower end of the pay scale, they solve small problems.
So, the way that I think about it is the idea of situational awareness. Okay. We talked about it at the board level. The board level has ultimate and total situational awareness across all of the organizations of the company. Okay. So then if you go down into one company, your general manager has even more situational awareness than your employees, but not as much as your board, right? So as you drill down, everybody's situational awareness gets narrowed. And if I have my GM answering menial emails because maybe I didn't take the time to separate out the email boxes, so there are things that I don't want everybody to see in the same email box as customer requests, let's just say. So then they're all munched together. And so I immediately classify that email box as GM level only. Okay. Because I just didn't take the technical space to separate everything out. And so now when they come in and they start answering emails, they go from this situational awareness to this. And I've just completely made them ineffective. There's also this idea that is challenging to quantify, but can be worth it, is called switch overhead. If I take my GM situational awareness of operating the company like this, and then I bring it to here, this transition takes time, money, and they have to take everything that was in their short-term memory of whatever tasks they were working on, similar to what we did here. Like you had to switch modes to answer that call. Right. And then completely put your mind into a whole different situation. And then we had to come back into it, right? That switch overhead. Everything that we were just talking about, the tracks that we were going to go on, the story arcs, all of that, gone. Has to be completely rebuilt, reestablished. And that happens hundreds of times a day. This is why people say time box, right? Have a time where all you're doing is answering emails. But that's generally not reality, especially if you're on the ground, because those interruptions occur. And so each time I have them switch overhead from one email to another email, right? So I go from that email doesn't matter to this email does matter to now I have to research to make sure my responses are accurate, now to an email that doesn't matter. Every single one of those switches causes them to lose their situational awareness of everything else. And then somebody comes in with a real problem. Maybe they're right in the middle of responding to a sensitive email. Real problem comes in. Task switch. Now they're over here. Now they're solving this problem. How effective are they going to be at any one of those individual tasks? It's always going to be diminished. So as we go, okay, what can I remove off of their plate? I go, well, I can have an AI classify emails into this is important, this is not important, this is a customer service issue, this is an operations issue, all of those different classifications automatically. No one has to look at it and see it. AI has perfect attention, which means they never blink. They'll never miss an email. And the emails that we classify as, these just need, so in customer service, you have like stopping the clock. You're not even really answering them. You're just responding to them so that in their minds, their response time clock gets reset. And so some emails, like comes in, I'm like, this is a really important email. Human needs to look at it. I'm still going to respond to it just to stop the clock. So,
yeah, that makes sense. Because in my catering business, we get a lot of business because we answer the phone, right? And we hear that a lot from a lot of our customers is, you know what, I gave you the business because you returned my call.
Right.
Where most people, they don't even answer their phone and I got to wait 2 weeks to get a response, whatever the case. But because you guys answer the phone right away, you made me feel important. So I can definitely relate and see what you're saying.
Yeah. It carries across. It's like are you a successful contractor? You got a nice truck. Check. Is this a good restaurant with delicious food? Bathrooms are clean. Yeah, food's great. But that's how our brains kind of connect things.
Yeah.
We try to create associations across the board. Now, some people try to justify those things like, if they're not cleaning this, then, what does the kitchen look like type of thing.
Like, yeah.
But, you own restaurants, that there isn't a correlation between those two things. It's, no, my kitchen's really clean, therefore my bathroom may not be as clean all of the time.
Depending on my manpower.
Right, exactly. It's allocation of resource. But to a customer or somebody that doesn't have that situational awareness, we will create type 1 errors.
Right.
Think it's true, but it's just not true.
Gotcha.
And so with handling things like emails, we could make it so that GM only answers the emails that are specific to their station. And everything else gets sorted and passed on to the appropriate people or completely responded to. Like, for example, if it's a catering question, like an AI that has all of your SOPs, all of your pricing, all of your response metrics. Like, if you're gathering a metric on how long does it take you to put together a box with sandwiches times 100, it knows all of that. And somebody comes in and says, I need 100 box sandwiches, but I need them by this date and time. The AI will know immediately, given our current calendar and schedule, given what the velocity of the team as it stands right now, this seems like it's doable. Let me confirm with our operations and we will get back to you within, and it already knows what your general response time is on your emails. because it knows how often you converse, and it will set that reasonable expectation. And you can dial it so that you go, well, as a business, I always want to like under promise, over deliver. So I'm not going, if I know it takes me 18 hours to respond to emails, I'm going to give them, the next 24 hours or the next, 48, whatever.
Makes sense, yeah.
And then I'm going to hit them, in between that 15, 18 hour mark. And they're going to go, oh, they got back to me sooner. Awesome. Win. Food must be great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that all the way around.
So
yeah.
These are the types of things that can only happen if you have ownership over that project, if you understand that that is what's happening inside of your business, and you're implementing these tasks from the standpoint of like, I'm not trying to replace my general manager. I'm trying to make them more effective at the tasks that I hired them for. I didn't hire them to answer emails for 4 hours. And they probably don't even like that. Most people that are on the floor doing stuff like to be on the floor doing stuff. They do not like administrative tasks.
Sure.
And this is one of the reasons why they become, high return on the investment, because you stick somebody doing something that they don't like, you're never going to get performance out of them.
All right. So if you're just catching up with us, basically, Johnathan and I have been talking about how can we teach a course to the average business, and there's two types of businesses that we're talking about. Number one is the 5% that is actually monetizing, using AI well in their business. And then the 95, well, really, it's probably three different types, but 95% of business who are trying to use AI and are not monetizing from it, or they're not saving time, they're not becoming more efficient, they're not really doing anything, and they're not seeing anything on their bottom line. And then there's a whole nother classification of people who are just not using AI, period, in their business.
Right. And I would say they're the ones that also are not seeing a benefit. Because
they're definitely not seeing a benefit.
So earlier we talked about shadow AI.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a really important component of this AI in business.
Why don't you say what it is again?
Okay. So shadow AI is jargon, but what it encompasses is there are employees in your business that are using AI, but they're using it unofficially. They have ChatGPT on their phone, or they have Gemini or Grok, or all of these, some flavor of AI that they're using in their personal life, and they're using it in your company to make themselves more efficient. But because it's their own personal AI, you have no idea that that's what they're doing. And that creates several issues for a business. One is that you go, well, I'm not doing anything with AI. Okay, well, you assume that nobody in your business is doing anything with AI, but that's likely not the case. So a lot of this, there have been multiple studies that are looking into this issue. Like, is AI actually hitting the bottom lines of companies? And what they found is that for 95% of them, it's not. For the 5%, it is. This is where we get the 95-5. Shadow AI accounts for 90% of the use of AI in these businesses, which should be troubling to these companies, because you have board level situational awareness that says AI doesn't exist in my business. But we're assuming that it does because it's out there. And what you're not getting as a business owner is you're not getting the feedback loop. So you don't know if the AI is doing good things, bad things. And you're not able to capitalize on some of these allocation benefits, like we just talked about with time allocation, which translates to actual money in your business. Because you don't have some official channel. You're not providing official tools. You don't know if people are leaking sensitive data about your company.
And not even knowing it, not intentionally, just not knowing it themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That people make assumptions about technology. And what they know is that it's making them look like a rock star. Or it's answering questions easier, that you probably should have already been providing that information to them. But they have to go to outside channels in order to get those things answered. These are abdications of responsibility at the board level in a company. And so looking at that space, you go, well, they're using it. How do we get them tools that are within our channels? So they're safe for the data that we're transferring. We are providing education on how to use these tools effectively within the company. We are implementing workflows within the company that are optimized for this level of automation. And that allows us to have communications like where we want to assist you with the tasks. We don't want to replace you, which is also an interesting statistic. We found that, so these studies have revealed that this giant AI replacement fear is largely not seen. And most of the job losses can be attributed to attrition. And so now part of that, some might say, well, if 95% of the businesses aren't seeing an effect on their bottom line, then certainly people aren't losing their jobs. So what happens when the companies do become more effective? The more that you understand what AI can do in your business, the more that you begin to understand that it will always require some level of human interaction.
Some.
Yes. So it's like if you implement an auto caller to, call somebody on the phone to answer their questions or to touch base or to pre-qualify them after they have responded to you. I'm not trying to break any federal laws here.
Sure.
They have to request, and you have to specifically say, yes, I agree to be contacted by a robocaller. Yeah. But if you do that kind of outreach, a human has to be monitoring that to ensure that it's effective. That the people aren't trying to, for example, leak data about your company by taking advantage of an AI responder.
Yeah, but why couldn't an AI, and I know that they do, and I'm just asking this question, why can't an AI supervise an AI?
Absolutely can, and they do. And not only can they should. So just like we bounce ideas back and forth off of each other, and we kind of build a synergy as we refine that idea, AI does the same thing, or is capable of doing the same thing. And so an AI might say, hey, the best response to this request is X. And as part of your workflow, it'll hand that off to AI, Y, and say, is this a good response? Now, maybe AI X is simply just an analysis AI. It's simply there to categorize the nature of the request. AI B is there to determine, are there any security issues with that request? And then that hands it off to AI C that says, do we actually have a pre-built response for this type of request? Like, what are your hours? All of those types of things. Yeah. And so it goes through this series of AIs that have been specially designed to answer specific types of questions. When it goes through all of those at the speed of computers, it gets to the end with a response, having all of this panel of AI weighing in on their specialties. And that is the proper way to approach building a workflow. This is one of the reasons why businesses need to completely redesign their workflows for AI. Because if that same workflow was, Joe, copy paste this into the AI and get a response. Well, Joe's going to get a response, and it's going to sound good, but it's going to be missing a bunch of things. And there'll be a lot of opportunities that are missed in that, because part of that workflow is deriving metrics. How many requests do we get for sandwiches? I don't know. Who's going to take the time? And a lot of the types of things that businesses currently don't measure that could really help their business, they don't measure because it's cost prohibitive. And when you introduce AI, you drive down that cost. Like we used to, when we're building software, we used to plan everything to the T on paper because type 1 error. The second we build the wrong thing, it's a 400x cost to turn that ship around. And so we're very vigilant about solving the problems up front, identifying all these things up front, and working all of these things out before we start building stuff. But with AI, that cost is like almost zero. AI is measured in thousandths of a cent. And so we go, well, how about we build a bunch of experiments? By a bunch, I mean, like, let's do 1,000. Run 1,000 experiments. Let's simulate this thing out. What do we get? And then make some decisions based off of that. How do we feed that information? Take what you know right now. A lot of these AIs are trained on massive data sets that you would never have access to. Mm-hmm. And they're very good at that analysis. And so you can build decision elements that you would never have access to before for relatively inexpensive compared to, any other traditional fashion where you might have to like have some kind of exit survey or something like that.
Right.
Whereas, well, how about I just scan every email that I've received over the last, decade, because who deletes emails anymore? And then find out exactly what my customers have been asking from me. And then how about I link it up to my financials on my bank and have it correlate, this is what your customers have been asking for. This is how that's impacted the financials of your business.
Okay.
And you go, well, iceberg lettuce is out, guys, or whatever, right? These are the types of things that businesses need to reframe what they can actually understand about what makes their business money and what serves their customers best.
Okay. So catching us back up now to where our conversation was that we are putting together programs.
Yes.
Custom programs, blanket programs, and category type programs. And what I mean by that is like a custom program would be, we'll come into your business, we'll monitor your workflows. We'll look at your SOPs, we'll look at your employee manual, we'll look at all your stuff, right? And we will help you to implement AI agents or possibly build custom agents for their very specific business to buy them back their time, their money, their resources, where those particular people that are in their businesses can now focus on bigger projects and not menial tasks of managing those specific things. So that, in my opinion, we should have a basic program. Like every company does a P&L. Every company answers emails. Every company does social media, whatever the case. And here's package A, right?
Right.
And then there should be a custom package. Like you have a very specific business and you need very specific help with a very specific workflow.
Right.
And then a category, like, for example, I used to manage a heating company, and we used a very specific CRM that was just for a heating company. It did estimates and bids. It knew everything about the heating industry. It had hourly rates. It had all of the parts and pieces and everything in it, basically. It was kind of like a QuickBooks that was preloaded, full of everything, but was able to do everything for you.
Right.
So maybe the category type CRM with agents that are automatically plugged in for specific, for example, the plumbing companies. Right. Here's our plumbing AI program.
Right. So a lot of software as a service specific to an industry. Yeah. And so in the model that you just described, one of the reasons why that was really useful for people is because there's no way that they could afford to canvas all that information for themselves.
Right.
Right. And it was viable to the company building it because if you had access to that data, then you could capture all of that business, right? So where AI changes some of those paradigms is that if I give you, here's the national average for the costs of these things, right? And then you have to come up with some fuzzy logic in between to adapt that to your specific business. And what does that look like? National, state, region, city, you. Because you may not be the big dog in town. And there's no way that a software as a service can understand the inefficiencies and efficiencies of your specific business. And so with AI, we actually build software almost in the other direction. We go, let's take what you are actually doing, not what you think you're doing, not what you want to be doing. Let's start with where you are right now. And if you're in business, you go, let's tie in your financials so that we're looking at single points of truth, right? There is nothing more true than your bank statements correlated to your tax statements. You want to know what your priorities are? Show me your bank statements. I will tell you what your priorities are because that's where you're putting your money. And if you have, your customer interactions, we go, well, what are your customers? Oh, my customers love us. Do they? How do you know? Well, open up your emails. Let's see how you're actually communicating with people. Let's see over time if that's gotten better or worse. Because I don't think any business owner could tell you how their sentiment has changed over time. A 10-year time period, 5 years, last year, right? We think we're the same. Like, I think I'm still the same guy that I was, 15 years ago. Maybe I know more, but from my perspective, I'm still the same me, but objectively that's not true. And the people that are outside of me would probably attest to that. So same thing with business. You think your customers are the same. They're not. Mm-hmm. You think that your reputation has been static. It's like either you have a dramatic fall off and you're like, oh, definitely not, there's problems, or I don't detect any issues, therefore I must be doing fine. Well, these are not quantifiable in that statement. You have to actually go look at these communications. Have an AI classify, was this an aggressive response? Was this an empathic response? Did the emails just cut off? You don't know. Maybe you sent a response, never got a reply, never thought about it, moved on, assumed they were fine. But then that same person popped up on this, rating site.
Hold up one second.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're still good here.
The ominous click.
Rating site.
So maybe you have that rating site pop up somewhere else, and it's the same person that's being critical of your customer service, but they never replied back. They never closed that loop with you. They just got upset, and then maybe months later, maybe something came up around your business, and they go, "Oh yeah, I had business with them, and it wasn't good," or "It was really excellent." How are you going to correlate these communications that you had with a customer with a rating that pops up a year later because of all of these other things? So that may seem like for some people, I just don't care, and that's fine. There's going to be a lot of businesses that don't care, but they will end up losing businesses to companies that create software as a service that make that sort of workflow accessible to everybody. And those types of things, not only are happening now, the future is now, it's not evenly distributed sort of idea. But to give you an idea, it took 16 years for computer technology to reach the level of adoption that AI has achieved in 2. So the acceleration of this technology has never been seen before. The level of adoption and the rate it's being adopted has never been seen before, ever.
Yeah, it's the fastest growing business ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
And if you're using it, you understand why. And it's because these types of insights, like when we look at, how did online ads become multi-trillion-dollar companies? How did that happen? Well, it turns out that what you like in a box has no effect on a market. But what millions or billions of people like, all of a sudden reveal consistent patterns that were not obvious. And AI is allowing that type of insight on a level playing field. And that is also something that makes AI completely unique, is usually these types of technologies start out in government, military space, private corporations. After 30 years, the starts trickling down into the rest of the population. And by the time it gets to all of us, we're so far behind relatively that big corporations stay the big corporations. AI was released to the masses first, and overnight, you and I had access to the exact same stuff that the Fortune 100 had, and that has created a completely different opportunity and environment. So,
which is so different now, because what we have access to that is free, or what could cost $29.99 a month, is the same thing that businesses were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy.
Right.
And it's, yeah. So yeah,
The,
I
the,
can
the
totally
insight
see
is crazy.
Yeah.
The insights are absolutely absurd. And somebody like, well, why would they release it to everybody all at once? One of the elements that makes AI smarter is by seeing more patterns. And it needs a lot of interactions
Yes,
to do that.
to be able to see
And the
patterns,
only
yeah.
way to achieve that scale of interactions to train the next levels of AI was to have people use it.
Yeah.
And so there are models that exist, of course, at this point that are not open to the masses. But upon that initial release, everyone was the same. And these models they're becoming more capable, not because there's like this magical, like better AI. It's that we're learning how to apply it. And we're learning what the AI needs. And one of those things is context. This is like, why do I hook it to my financials? Because it can know everything that there is to know about finances, but it doesn't know anything about your finances.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of extrapolate that across the board. It has to understand what it is that you are trying to achieve and within what context. Because in the context of all things, it's useless.
Okay. So let's talk about how we could actually help somebody on a more understandable basis for, like me, for example. Like we've had this conversation. Mm-hmm. We consider you the brain and me the dumb, right? I can dumb it down.
I've got the brains, you've got the brawn. Let's make lots of money.
So it's
a reference to a red song.
I can explain it to someone on my level. You can explain it to someone on your level. What I want to do is, because the average entrepreneur is on my level of thinking, is like, hey, I want to go and build a business doing the thing, and then I need to implement things to help me do the thing, right?
Right.
So let's just say, for example, I'm going to go through a couple different categories of how we can help a company to save time and money and be more efficient, more cost effective, and increase their bottom line. Let's say, for example, accounting. Mm-hmm. What can we do for accounting with AI?
So, as we talk about where your money's at, that's where your priorities are. Mm-hmm. Tax law is inaccessible to most people.
Yep.
It's technically accessible, but if you think that me being the brain, it's like the layers that are involved in tax code confuse even people that spend their life doing that. And part of that is there's the tax code, and then there's how the tax code is actually being applied. Mm-hmm. And then how does that apply to you? So AI can analyze and look at and find these patterns within complex elements like tax code and look at what opportunities should you be asking your CPA about, because you don't have perfect attention on the tax code. And even though your CPA,
nor do I want it.
No, we don't. You know, in the CPAs, they're human. They have update cycles. They also have sets of tools. I guarantee they're using AI in these tools to help them never blink at when that tax code changes. But elements that ultimately will become new tax code start out as, legislation or an executive order. And you have state tax code that layers onto federal tax code. You have city taxes. You have layers that are applied. And so you're not just looking, so now you're looking at your state tax code, your city tax code, the country's tax code, and all of the legislative bodies in between. And you need to know as a business, how should we be allocating funds for the next 2 years, 2, 5, 10. And when you're a small business, you're not doing any of that. But if you knew, for example, so let's say like, what was it, 2020 to 2023 or something like that, where a commercial vehicle could be written off 100%. Mm-hmm. But if you didn't,
it's a certain weight, and
it's as long as it's more than a Land Rover.
Yeah.
But effectively, you could buy a company car 100% write-off. Now, if you're a small business and you didn't know that was coming, or you didn't even know it existed at all, maybe you found out in 2024 when they announced that it was over. If you didn't see that arc, you didn't allocate the liquidity in your business to take advantage of it.
Yep.
And so you missed out on a free rig or 10. Mm-hmm. because you just didn't know. And you weren't paying your CPA, to contact you on a regular basis because that's, a higher reserve, all of these reasons that come into real life.
Yep.
Like, you talk to your bookkeeper, when something's wrong, you talk to your CPA when it's time for taxes. And let's just face it, in these professions, they're not all created equal. And so they miss things. Or they may not think that that applies to you because you never told them that you were interested in buying a new vehicle. And so there's all of these elements that deal with your finances and the accounting of your business that can help you plan. It can help you allocate resources more effectively. So if you're a restaurant, you're sourcing all of your ingredients. Do you have perfect insight across all possible sources for your ingredients to determine over time, are these prices going up? Are they going down? Should you be anticipating a rise in flour for your bread because Ukraine annihilated all of their wheat fields? And that accounts for X percentage of grain production in the world. And that's going to have a follow-on effect. Do you know how long it takes? What is that lag? Like right now in real estate, we talk about, next year, the NAR is like, 14% increase in home sales. But we're probably not going to see anything less than a 6% interest rate. So we go, well, what is that going to do to prices? And what is that lag? How does that follow on? These are concepts that, like, if you're just running your day-to-day stuff, they're beyond your scope. Mm-hmm. The cognitive load is too high, and you just say, I can't worry about it.
So how do we bring that to the customer?
You simplify it. So you change the mindset. You have to educate people on what to look for in a way that's very simple.
Yeah,
very
but
straightforward.
Yeah, I get that. But
okay.
But what I'm getting at is, like, let's say we've got two guys in a truck,
yep,
right? Type outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has time to run these reports. Nobody has time to do the thing.
Those
like
are tools.
What you're talking. Yeah, the tools that you're talking about. Right. But but somebody's got to read the report and make sense of it and apply it to their business.
Let's address that right there.
Cool.
That's an assumption. You assume that somebody has to read the report.
But they have to apply it to the business.
Well, it has to be applied to the business. That is true.
Right.
But does a human have to apply it?
I don't know.
This is where we talked about you have to rework your workflows to accommodate this level of automation. This is not like AI makes decisions on behalf of your business. And you can scope it to only make certain types of decisions. Mm-hmm. But this is why, I start out with, you have to change how you think about this tool. Mm-hmm. Because so many business owners are in your spot and they go, well, I have these people, they have to run the report. No, you have to be thinking right out of the gate, what problem am I solving? Do I actually have a problem? AI aside, tools aside, what is the problem?
You mean your business model?
Not your model. Okay, why even have a report? What insight is that report supplying to your business that solves a problem that is
okay,
monetary?
Here's a really good example. I pay a company $1,300 a month to do my SEO.
Okay.
And they send me a report every single month that tells me about how each one of those keywords were being used and how many times people clicked on it and so on and so forth, and the conversion rates and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I don't read the reports.
Right.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
Now tell me how you can help me with that.
Okay. So let me ask you this. What's the reason you chose SEO? What problem in your business were you trying to solve?
I needed more customers.
Okay.
And that's what I knew.
Right. So the problem is I need more customers. How many more customers do you need? Because I need 10 customers is going to yield a different solution than I need 10,000, right?
Well, I know how much more money I need.
Okay. All right. So it's not even customers anymore. It's I need to increase the profitability of my business by what amount? A multiplier, by a specific dollar amount you're trying to achieve. So and just to not go in the weeds on it, what I'm highlighting here is that you pulled SEO off the shelf for a profitability problem, but you never articulated that it's a profitability problem that you're trying to address. I need more money in my business. Is that liquidity? Is that what specific business issue are you trying to address? And without that, SEO, they're going to SEO themselves. Let's just assume that they're really good at what they do. Okay, so they drive traffic. That is what SEO does. Specifically, they drive traffic from search engines. Okay, maybe they're with the times. Maybe they're also driving traffic through AI chat. But if their focus is drive traffic, but the issue with your business, I'm not saying this is going to be your business, but just as an example, is let's say customer retention. SEO, driving more customers to your business, might look like you're more profitable, but it never addresses the issue. It scales your problem, actually. It can make it worse or your issue is capturing profitability because you're pushing the wrong products. And it may be like, oh, well, we make a ton of money on this. And you're like, do you? Well, yeah, look at our sales on this are the highest. It's like, okay, have they always been that way? Have the ingredients gone up? Does it take them more time? Did you at one point in time have an employee that was amazing at that task? And then they went on to better things. Maybe you promoted them and then they trained the replacement. There was no SOP. Replacement doesn't have the innate knowledge that comes with experience to do the task. And they're just that much slower or they're just that much more wasteful. They have bigger hands. And so they scoop more mayonnaise and it scales across time or across how many more sandwiches you're making. And you go, hey, we're going gangbusters. If I tell you to make one sandwich, it's going to have perfect allocation of ingredients. If I say make 1,000 sandwiches, you're going to give zero attention to those things.
Perfection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now it goes from, oh yeah, I got time to make everything nice to now we're slapping stuff on. This is why, at one point in time, you never saw a scale in a coffee shop. Now they're built into the freaking espresso cups, right? Why? What happened? Waste. All of the amount of waste in those companies started adding up because the businesses became more successful. Smaller issues became really big issues. We see this in AI. If you do a little bit of AI, you're like, oh, totally reasonable. But if you do a lot of AI, all of a sudden you get $1,000 a month infra bill. Ask me how I know. And so when you're working with being more successful, which is kind of what we're talking about here, how can you be more successful, be more efficient? You are as likely to scale your inefficiencies as your efficiencies. And if you don't get some of these base skills down, base skills by identify and articulate the actual problem. And when you link this problem with a metric, you'll be able to see if that's actually your problem. Because when I just, in a couple of seconds that I quizzed you about your SEO, I discovered that SEO isn't even a problem. It was never the problem. It was the symptom of a problem. Mm-hmm. And so you were 3 layers deep. You're spending $1,300 on the symptom of a symptom. And then if I ask, has it solved your problem? And you're like, did it? Did it solve your problem? Do you have more revenue running through your business? Are you more profitable? Did you scale any problems by doing that?
Well, here's the answer to that question. Because not everyone is using AI on a huge level, and everyone is still Googling. I don't want to say everyone, but right. There's a very good portion of people that just Google, and there's a very good portion of people who use AI as superpower Google, right?
Yeah.
And that's the best that they know how to use it for. Yeah. Where that's pulling information, it pulls the information from Google. It pulls information from what is that one review site for food? I hate it. Whatever, they're out of California. I can't remember. Anyway, it pulls it from several different areas and it'll different sources. Right. But the majority of the source usually comes from Google. And so that's the reason why I'm using SEO right now, is because everyone's kind of still stuck there. And eventually it's going to go towards all of the other review sites and whatever the case and the source sites.
Part of this arc, so we want to get to how how people implement this in their business.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I started with understand what problem you're solving is the how you think about the problem in your business is exemplary of how most people think about problems. And it's not the proper way to address problems, period. Like not everybody's a problem solver. Like I'm a professional problem solver. And so I have a structured way of looking and identifying what are the actual problems. And so step one is you don't have to become pro problem solver, but you have to understand that you're not solving your problems correctly because you're not identifying them. Step one, why is that important? I don't want you to scale the downside risk of your business. Okay. Step two, we go, now that I know the problem and I understand how to measure my problem and I know what success looks like, I can now apply the appropriate tool. And our argument is find the appropriate AI to plug in there.
Right.
Now, if you have a complex problem that requires a complex solution, lots of moving parts, you would hire professionals to come in and derive that solution. But because you are the decision maker, you have to understand that that solution is not I'm going to go buy some product off the shelf, like the CRM example that you gave, because that will be insufficient once you implement it into your business because you didn't change your workflows to accommodate it. If you want to make more money in business, you are either going to have to scale the money coming in or decrease the waste, right?
Yep.
And if you are on the wrong side of that decision, like if customers coming in is actually not the problem, let's say you have more customers than you can reasonably address, then you have to address the waste. If you don't really articulate that, you will always end up with the wrong solution. And it might look like the right solution. Type 1 error, false positive. Thought it was right, it wasn't right. And when you don't solve those issues, you don't see the results that you really are ultimately looking for. When we give people a really high-powered tool that is more powerful than a Google for their business, and they misapply it, they're going to be the 95%. They're going to spend $20,000 on front of house, so sales and marketing, when the issues in return on investment in their business are in the back of house. And when I can just say, this is what the metrics pan out. Like we know that back of house has a higher ROI. Then you're not even going to be looking at trying to do the things that are flashy and whiz bang. Every AI tool that increases your lead gen is going to be off the table. It's going to be uninteresting to you because as a business, you want the biggest bang for buck. You're going to start looking at the other things that can really bring you a return. And so you got to educate people in this way. And it cannot be as complex as I'm laying it out. This will obviously.
I hope not.
well, the thing. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, sometimes people they just seek the answer because they don't have the time, and I get that. And part of this full explanation is to understand that there are people like me that are putting this thinking into the end product. So that when I tell you, stop looking in the front of house, look in the back of house. It's higher return. You're not going to go, well, I want to go do all the thinking that Johnathan just did. You're just going to go, okay, what in the back of the house can we do? If I tell you you're not articulating your problems correctly, follow these 4 steps, do these 4 things. And you'll be like, okay, I'm going to do these 4 things. And then I will know what my problem is. Who's in charge of it? What's my problem? How do I measure it? What does success look like? And you carry that through.
So you said, what is my problem? Who's in charge of it? What does success look like? How do I carry it through? Is that what?
So every problem needs to be articulated specifically. What is the problem?
Okay.
So this can be like, I need more money in my business. Okay. So profitability. How do we increase profitability? And you look at, well, my business makes money in these ways. It's not going to be everything, right? And so just by narrowing it down to this is how my business makes money. These are the products I sell. These are the services I sell. Then you go, okay, if we're going to increase one of those, by how much would we need to increase it to achieve our goal? I need to increase profitability by 20%. Okay, in what length of time? 20% by the end of the year. Okay, what is that dollar amount? This is the dollar amount. Okay, now I understand. I need to achieve this many more dollars in the bank account in 12 months. Okay, so what does that look like month over month? Or if I develop a strategy, I might go, well, for the first 6 months, we're going to see no improvement. And then for the next 6 months, it's going to be an exponential improvement until we achieve our goal. And so understanding how we're measuring, and then what is our goal? That dollar amount. Okay, so what am I looking at? That one metric that I'm scaling to this one point, and I have to see progress. And my expected path is going to look, equal, or it's going to be progressive. However it is, you set that expectation up front. You haven't touched a single tool. You haven't talked to a single vendor. You've done none of that. It's just clear articulation of the goal. Then you go, is this a problem that AI can help me with? And it's that point where you go, you're not just going to go pull ChatGPT off the shelf and start putting it in there, because now, like, well, can ChatGPT help me scale this metric? If it can, how specifically can it? So changing the way you approach those things is key, because even if I'm selling the tool set, if I say this, plug it in, here you go, this will solve your problem. This is the plumbing AI. How are you going to justify the cost? How do you know that it's working? How do you know that you're the 5%, not the 95%? So that's the initial space. And all of this talk is to understand like that's what we're putting into this. And there are ways of teaching people that are way more nerdy than even things I'm talking about. Because people can only consume so much information before that's it.
It's like 10%, right? People consume about 10% of what they're told.
It's 4 novel ideas. So you can only take in and hold on to up to 4 novel ideas before you're at capacity, start pruning stuff off. And those 4 novel ideas can only happen within that 8 to 12 minute range. The reason for that is we load things into short-term memory. Then we have to decide what gets allocated to long-term memory. And if you want to learn something, there has to be a step in there where you actually apply what you've learned. And so when we build course material, we look at this information cadence. How much information that was brand new did I give you? How much information did I interleave from things that you've already known? How often did you have to apply these novel concepts? And you progress people through, call them stages of competence. And there's all these cool, fancy, like Bloom's taxonomy, 4 stages of competence, all of these things that people that are like me, but in the brain space, that they've understood this is how we take information. And so we deliver information at all of these different levels with all of those elements in mind. So this piece is like, this is what you'd give your employees, because they're not at board level decision making. Their situational awareness doesn't require it. But you can't just give them that without the business owner having gone through their piece, which is, how do I introduce this tool to my employees so that they don't have an immune response to it, so they actually use it, so they understand that this is to better them, to assist them in their job. I want my managers to be talking about AI. I want them to be talking about what's working, what's not working. I want them to know that it's okay to make mistakes. I want them to know that we need to capture that feedback so that it doesn't continue to make mistakes. All of these things. And that has to be communicated from the top down. And then and it's a very specific way that you communicate it, so that people that are not part of all of those conversations, when they receive this tool, it's couched in this environment where, I'm not a lesser employee because I have to use AI because I'm not a brain. It's no, we're all using AI. We're all trying to figure out how this is going to make our jobs better.
Yeah.
And it's going to be applied within this framework. You're going to use these specific tools, and don't use it on this stuff.
Yeah. And the good thing is that for anybody who's listening to this, is that the majority of people don't want to know how it works. That's me. I mean, sometimes I'll go to a restaurant and, I'm a foodie, so I always want to know, hey, how did you make that? That was delicious. But some people don't want to know. Some people are just like, I just want delicious. Just give me delicious. Right. That's all I need. I don't need to know how you made the soup, or I don't need, whatever the case, just make me delicious. And that's what we're going to do here, if that's what your desire is. And if your desire is to learn more and to take a deep dive into Johnathan's depths, then then we have that as well. And so, but for me, the dumb guy, make me delicious, right?
Definitely make delicious. Don't, well, over delegation is the death of management.
Yeah.
And part of it is that, as owners, we're often task saturated. And when we involve ourselves in all of the wrong places, we're not able to sit down and go, well, how did you make that delicious? Because from the that board level, like, that is where their time should be allocated. Like, how did you make that delicious? Okay, this is our specific metrics. This is your specific task. Implement. And there are so many people that just want the magic sauce, and they can take that off the shelf, magic sauce, but don't expect that it's going to have the same impact as somebody that understands their role of making the decision, defining what problem they're solving, because you might see some positive result. It's not going to be the same positive result. Like, these decisions, like, have to be made from people who understand the big picture. It's like, if you're making burgers, but as the board level that you're also going to start making tacos, but nobody else beneath that level knows that, they'll be like, I don't know, we got this pallet of tortillas, we just sent them back.
Throw them out.
You're like, no, that was our experiment.
Yeah.
And so, and I get the desire to just push the easy button.
Yeah.
And there will be an easy button, but don't press it naively.
Yeah.
And understand, like, it's just as naive to ignore this because you don't want to spend the time on it.
Right.
Like, there is no easier button than to do nothing.
Yeah.
And, so
there needs to be a basic understanding of AI on all fronts, at least a basic understanding. And it should be a customizable understanding based on, number one, your level of business or what type of business you have. But number two, your desire to understand it too. So I implement tools on a regular basis. I buy softwares, like, for example, and we're not going to get into the weeds because I know we're at a hard stop here, but Nano Banana is cool. Do I want to know how it works? Nope. I just want to use it. I want to type in, hey, make me dancing on top of a hot air balloon, and it does it. That's what I want. That's what I need,
right.
And I don't need anything else.
Right.
For you want to know how that all works. I don't. I just want it to work. I want to be dancing on the balloon, and that's what I need.
Yeah, well, that, again, if all you want is random character on balloon, there are great tools for that. Nano Banana, one of the best currently.
Yeah.
But if you are creating an AI clone of yourself, and it needs to look like you, sound like you, across multiple, hundreds or thousands of pieces of content across every platform, now you need comfy UI, Flux, one. You need a workflow that preserves we call it identity lock, but it preserves this fidelity, like skin textures and all of these elements that when you look at it, you're like, that's AI. And you're almost annoyed by it. You almost don't even want to listen to it because we have this desire for authenticity. But there are also content out there that are AI that you don't even know that it's AI because the workflow is different. And it's because somebody defined their real problem. They said, this needs to look real, as completely indistinguishable from me on an 8K camera. And that person didn't choose Nano Banana. They chose a diffusion model through a workflow. They went and learned about latent space. They went and learned how to put that together and how to have a completely repeatable process every time. It looks like me in every instance all the time, or swaps me out with somebody else. Like, maybe it's just Bill having a conversation with himself.
That's what this is going to be. That's what this is going to be.
So, it's important. This is, again, why it starts with that decision maker. You can press the easy button. You can absolutely always press the easy button. But unless you've defined the outcome that you're looking for, you will never know if you've actually solved the problem you were seeking to solve because you never defined it. You were just playing with a really cool toy.
So So we're going to make that as easy as possible.
Absolutely as easy as possible.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, or multiple days. We'll probably stretch this out over a few days, but
we'll see what sticks.
yeah, absolutely. Give us some feedback on anything that you want to know about AI. We would love to sit here and talk about it. I think, Johnathan, we could sit here and talk about this for 5 or 6 more hours, but nobody's got that kind of time. So that's it for today. We appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.